Today I have a really special guest with me, Miss Yvonne DeVita.
Dominique, I'm excited. When you reached out to me, I was very excited to be on the show.
Can you explain a little bit about what that was like, how that felt, and how you felt?
I had a little lump right here on the side of my neck. And I asked my daughter, "What do you think this is?" And she said, "Oh, it's probably a swollen lymph node, Mom." So it started very small and it started growing this way across my neck. He looked at the ultrasound and he said, "Oh yeah, this is actually growing into your jugular vein and it's coming now to your trachea." It literally was here. If I was speaking, it was a different sound. It was not the voice you hear now. It was difficult to speak. It was difficult to eat. I was eating yogurt and soup. I couldn't eat anything else. My esophagus had been pushed all the way over to here. And it could be this kind of thyroid cancer that is very fast growing, which this was in just a space of a couple weeks. And I finally called a friend in Rochester. I live in Binghamton, New York. I called a friend in Rochester who was a doctor. So the next day, ICU doctor came in with a big smile on his face and said, "If it is, there's no treatment."
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of BeastVsZombie. Today I have a really special guest with me, Miss Yvonne DeVita, also known as the Book Whisperer. She is a business owner. She is an author, cancer survivor. So we're super blessed to have her join us today. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for joining me today on this episode of BeastVsZombie.
Oh, Dominique, I'm excited. I'm real. When you reached out to me, I was very excited to be on the show.
So let's get right into it.
Cool.
So we both had a type of lymphoma, that is the cancer we overcame. You spoke to the lymph node cutting off your trachea and growing so fast. Can you explain a little bit about what that was like, how that felt, and how you felt during that time?
It was astonishing, Dominique. I had a little lump right here on the side of my neck. And I asked my daughter, "What do you think this is?" And she said, "Oh, it's probably a swollen lymph node, Mom. Give it a couple weeks, and if it doesn't go away, then go and have it." So I did. I waited a couple weeks. It not only didn't go away, it got bigger. And so I went to the doctor, and she sent me for an ultrasound. Of course, she said, "Let's get you in and get an ultrasound." Well, the ultrasound appointment wasn't for another week or 10 days. I can't remember how long it was. And it had gotten even bigger. So it started very small and it started growing this way across my neck. And you could see it. Anywhere I went, you could see I had this thing growing on my neck. And there was a lot of rigmarole, I'll say, in finally getting to someone to do a biopsy, because the doctor I saw, he acted like it was very important, because he looked at the ultrasound and he said, "Oh yeah, this is actually growing into your jugular vein and it's coming now to your trachea and your esophagus. We need to get something done. We can't treat it till we know what kind of cancer it is, but we need to." But then he didn't do anything. I kept waiting for his office to call me and schedule me, and they said, "No, he's out of the office." Or the next day it was, "No, he's homesick today." And I finally called a friend in Rochester. I live in Binghamton, New York. I called a friend in Rochester who was a doctor, and she looked at the ultrasound because I sent it to her, and she said, "They should have been taking care of this yesterday." She said, "I don't understand what they're doing." So she connected me with a doctor that she knew in the Rochester Wilmot Cancer Center. And they said they could see me the next day.
Wow.
Now, what a difference. So we drove up to Rochester. We had to find someone to take care of the dog. I was actually babysitting the dog for my daughter. And find someone to take care of the cat, because I have a cat. So anyway, we went up, we had the biopsy, but they still said they didn't quite know what kind of cancer it was. And so I was, at that point, it started in July, and by then it was the early August. It literally was here. I couldn't, if I was speaking, it was a different sound. It was not the voice you hear now. It was difficult to speak. It was difficult to eat. I was eating yogurt and soup. I couldn't eat anything else. My esophagus had been pushed all the way over to here. So we had out of town family visiting, and we went to spend time with them because I had an appointment the following week in Rochester. I said, well, let's go visit. What am I going to do? Sit home by myself? No. So I did. I went to visit family, but it just got to the point where I felt like I was starting not to be able to breathe. So we decided to come home to Binghamton in case I had to go to the emergency room. I wanted to be, here where I know the people in the emergency room because I'd been there a couple of times. So I came home, nothing happened. We did go to the appointment in Rochester, and that's when I ended up in the ICU or the emergency room. My daughter kept telling me to go to the emergency room, Dominique. Mom, you need to go to the emergency room. She would text me on my phone, are you going to the emergency room? And I was like, I don't want to go to the emergency room. I don't like the emergency room. Let me see what the doctor says when I get there. So we got to the doctor, and he said, you need to be hospitalized, but it's going to take me a while to find you a bed, so you're going to the emergency room. So I ended up in the emergency room anyway.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad. The doctor who did the initial biopsy came down with his little team of like 5 or 6 other doctors into this little room in the emergency room, and he did a very deep, big needle biopsy. So I ended up with several places on my neck where I had, like, because he had put this big needle in. It didn't hurt. They numbed it, so it wasn't hurt. And then I had to wait. Again. So they found me a room. I was admitted to the medical ICU. I was put under something called DART, and it's what was it for? Difficult Airway Response Team. So if I stopped breathing, they had to call this special group of people to come in and put a tube in my throat to help me breathe. The ER doctor or the ICU doctor was not qualified. They had this DART thing up there. So I'm waiting. Dominique, this is the funny part. Well, it's not funny, but the doctor who had done the biopsy came in to see me, and he said, Miss DeVita, we still don't know what this is, but it's here in your throat, and it could be this kind of thyroid cancer that is very fast growing, which this was. In just a space of a couple weeks, it had grown across my throat. He said it could be this, and if it is, there's no cure. So you will need to get your affairs in order, and we will probably end up intubating you, medically intubating you, and put you in a coma, from which you probably won't wake up. Now, my poor son was there when he was telling me this, and my son was just beside himself. And I said, well, I don't think I want to have that kind of cancer. I'll have some other kind of cancer, thank you. I don't want to do that part. That doesn't sound like something that I'm interested in. He said, well, we won't know. We won't know till tomorrow. So the next day, the ICU doctor came in with a big smile on his face, and he said, it's not the bad cancer, it's a lymphoma, we can treat it, and you can be cured. And they started me on steroids right away, and I'll tell you, it shrunk in the space of it was in the afternoon they gave me the steroids. During the night, I could finally sleep. I hadn't been sleeping well because I couldn't lay down. I would choke. So I was trying to sleep sitting up, which is hard. And just the first dose of steroids shrunk it enough that I could lay down and sleep.
Wow, man, that is very intense. I'm so happy that it was a treatable cancer, right? It was when I was diagnosed with my form of lymphoma, it was like, oh, you have cancer, but this is a treatable cancer. We can figure this out, right? And I guess that felt good. Like you said, your doctor was smiling, right?
Yeah,
And I'm sure it was better news to you and your son and your family than thyroid cancer that was possibly
right.
going to, put you
Yeah.
out of the game. That does not sound like good
Yeah.
news.
Well, I'll tell you, my daughter is an epidemiologist, and when I first showed her this, and when it was determined that yeah, we think it's cancer, she went out and researched all kinds of what it could be, and she sent me an email or a DM on Facebook, and she said, "Mom, I don't want to scare you, but it could be this really bad thyroid cancer, the thyroid cancer, the doctor. And if it is, there's no treatment." And I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you let me know that, but I don't think that's what it is. And so when he came and said the same thing, I was like, seriously, Dominique, I just said, well, I'm not having that. I'm not going to do that one. So I choose some other kind, thank you. And yeah, so how did when you were diagnosed? Did they do chemo or radiation? What did they do?
Yeah. So when I was diagnosed, I was 19 at the time. I didn't,
Wow.
it was similar to, it wasn't as intense of fast growth as you
Hmm.
explained in my area. So I had a lymph node swollen in my neck,
Mm-hmm.
and I just thought it was a knot in my neck. I went to my
Mm-hmm.
chiropractor. I told them to rub it out. They told me to go to the doctor. I went to an urgent care doctor. He knew immediately that I had cancer. And so we had to
Wow.
do tests. We had to do a biopsy, right?
Yeah.
When they did the
Mm-hmm.
biopsy, and all this time there's waiting. Just like you
Yep.
experience waiting, maybe not as much as the first doctor that you spoke to, but there was weeks of waiting between each step. It was like I got my I had my urgent care appointment. Well, first I went to the chiropractor, and then that was sometime before the holidays. I live in Las Vegas. I was still
Uh,
on my healthcare plan with my parents at the time. So all my healthcare was in Portland, Oregon, where I'm from. And
oh,
so
oh,
my urgent care appointment was scheduled just during the holidays when I went back. So it was Thanksgiving because
mm,
I didn't have any symptoms in my mind that I knew
right,
that
right.
were saying, "Oh,
Hmm.
you're sick," right? Or I was very
Right,
active, working out. I was in college, things like that, and so there was in my mind really no need to worry. I just need to go and see what the doctor he's gonna
right.
maybe prescribe me or whatever
Hmm.
that looks like. And so we do that over Thanksgiving. Then he tells me I have cancer. Then we have to wait for our my biopsy, which is when I come
Hmm.
back now for Christmas. So it's probably like
Mm,
a month before I get a biopsy. Then right before Christmas, we find out I do have indeed have cancer, right? And then so then after that they schedule a PET scan. It ends up being actually like all throughout my body. Like it ended up being stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had
wow,
like bulky lymphoma in my chest and below my diaphragm and things like that.
wow.
And looking back, there were some side effects or some symptoms that I had, like night sweats, and I was a little tired for no reason.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't have known that that caused cancer, right?
Right.
And So that was kind of the process and how I figured out that I had cancer. It was a swollen lymph node, but it did not grow similar to what you experienced by any means. It was not, I was not in any pain. I think I figured
Yeah.
out I had cancer and I went snowboarding that weekend all weekend, and it was Christmas, so I was hanging out with my family, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
this huge thing. But then, like you, it was like, oh, you have lymphoma. This is curable. We can treat this. And you have
Hmm.
a 70% chance. So we start the chemo. It's called ABVD, is what they
Yep.
called it. Yep. And it's a 6-month treatment. You
Yep.
do like 6 cycles or something like,
Yep.
or 12
Yep.
or something like that. And I was the 30%. It did not work. I still had cancer. So
Wow.
after that, I did radiation. It didn't work. It was like a low dose of radiation. They were just trying to see if possibly this would work.
Hmm.
I did another form of chemo. It didn't work. I eventually did an immunotherapy treatment called nivolumab, and it did get me healthy and into remission. For for what they did at that time, they were getting me into remission. The next option was to do now a stem cell transplant. So I did a bone marrow
Yes.
transplant.
Yep. Yep.
After I did a bone marrow transplant, it still didn't work. I did more nivolumab. I was in remission for 3 years. The first stem cell transplant I did, I gave myself my own cells. And then
Wow.
after 3 years, I had a recurrence. So I was healthy for 3 years. I graduated college. Then my cancer came back. And so
Mm.
I had to do another transplant where I now live with my dad's cells. And it's been since 2022, and I've been cancer free. So that was.
Oh, that's wow. Yeah, man. I'll tell you. When they I felt fine. I kept thinking, how can this be? Because I feel great. If it had not been growing in my neck, I would not. I don't know. I might be sitting here with it somewhere else and not even know,
Right.
right? Because I would not have noticed. I was feeling. I might have been tired, like you say, but um, I, I said to the doctor, "How will I know? How will you know whether it's coming back?" Because it was something that was very visible. It was funny when I was in the medical ICU. So that was where I went after the emergency room. And the medical ICU is where they usually send comatose patients. So the nurses were like, "You are our favorite person because you can get up and walk around. You can actually take yourself to the bathroom. We don't have to give you a sponge bath. We think you're great." Because I would get up and walk around the area. I wouldn't just lay in bed. It was stupid to lay in bed, right?
Right.
They wanted me to get up and walk around. But yeah, I just recently went for my first follow up appointment. I in January I had a PET scan and I was declared cancer free.
Nice. Congratulations.
And not they're not going to call it remission. They're not going to call it cured. They said you're cancer free, but we have to wait. We don't want to say anything else until I don't know when the next PET scan is because I just had an appointment and she said I said to her, "Am I getting a PET scan?" And she said, "No, we're just going to watch." I said, "What do you mean you're going to watch? You can watch all you want, but if it doesn't grow in my neck again, if it grows somewhere else, how are we supposed to know?" Because I felt fine.
Hmm.
I cannot tell you, call you up and say, "Oh, um, I had a bad day today. Do I have cancer?" No,
Right.
that's absurd, right? So I don't have to go back again in 3 months, and maybe they'll do the PET scan. I don't know exactly. It just seems to me like that's how else are they going to know? It's it's something that you think about a lot. I don't let it bother me, but it is curious, right? It is curious that I'm, of course, then I said to her, "Am I going to lose my hair?" And she said, "Oh yeah, your hair is going to fall out." She said, "As soon as it starts falling out, just go to the hairdresser and get it buzzed." And so I did. And so the first time it's actually grown back a little bit, but I don't know. I kind of like it. It's easy to take care of.
Yes, yes, that's awesome.
Did you lose your hair?
I did. So when I went through chemo, my hair got thin, and I did cut my hair. When I got a transplant, my hair, I did like rounds of full body chemo and full body radiation, like very
Wow.
intense. Basically, for a bone marrow transplant, they kill all the cells in your body with whatever drugs they give you until they can't detect any cells in your blood. So
Wow.
my hair basically just slicked off. It just died. And so yeah, I was bald twice, and that's probably a big reason why I decided to grow my hair back, and I have not cut it for many years because I like having long hair, and I know what it's
Hmm.
like to not have any hair, and it's fun to have long hair, honestly. I had long hair before I got cancer initially.
Yeah, I don't. Well, it's. I have a whole. I'm a girly girl. I wear makeup and I like to dress up, and so I have a whole lot of hair clips and hair things, and of course, I can't use them right now. So unless I grow my hair back, I'm gonna have to give them to my granddaughter because it's. I'll never use them, and I do like it because it's so easy to take care of. The only problem is I used to have purple hair.
Oh,
I used to color my hair purple and turquoise, and I don't really have enough. I have to. The hairdresser said I need to grow it out a little more,
a little bit.
and then we can talk about putting some color in it. So we'll see what happens then. But I don't mind it. It does. During the winter, it was cold. I would wear a hat to bed
Okay.
at night because I was cold.
I bet it gets cold in New York, yes. I'm sure it'll look cool when it's like short and colored. It'll be like a cool little style. That sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and honestly, so when you were going through your chemo, um, I never got sick. I know people that have like nausea and all that kind of stuff. They gave me some medication that's supposed to prevent that, and it did. I would go in and have the chemo. We would go up to Rochester every 3 weeks because again, we tried to set it up here in Binghamton, and the doctors were very lazy. Like, oh well, we can't see you this week. Let's see if we can fit you in a couple weeks. And I'm like, I don't want to wait a couple weeks. I have cancer. I need you to start taking care of this now. Oh well, it won't matter another couple. I said, yeah, it's growing into my neck, so it does matter. But so we said, fine, we're going back to Rochester,
Yeah.
and we would go up there every 3 weeks, and I would sit and have my chemo, and my sister would come and sit with me, and of course my husband was there. But I'm blessed that I didn't have any of the other symptoms that people get with chemo. I was um, pretty tired and very, it was hard to even get out of bed sometimes. But I did get myself out of bed because I had clients and I still had to work. But the clients were very understanding, and I didn't work as much.
Right. So, man, that's awesome. So I would get nauseous. That's pretty much. I
Mm.
would be tired, but I would get nauseous. And so I took some medications like Zofran and things like that, and they would not work really. The medications that they gave me for the nausea wouldn't really work very well. And so I would do things like take cannabis, like edibles,
Yeah, yeah,
in order to deal with my
yeah.
nausea and to keep me eating. It helped me keep an appetite. So because right,
I never lost my appetite.
that's so cool. Yeah, I don't think I lost my appetite other than when I was actually nauseous, right? Then you're just
Ah,
sick to your
okay.
stomach, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that enabled me, like you said, I would get tired, but I was able to stay pretty active while I was going through my initial chemo treatments. I played a lot of
Hmm.
basketball. I stopped like lifting heavy weights because I had a port in my chest, and I just kept playing basketball as much as I could. Some days I could play 1 or 2 games and I was done. And then
Hmm.
Right. Between your cycles, you kind of go through different phases, right? Like
Yeah.
the
Yep.
first day, I usually felt pretty good because I'm on steroids. The second and
Mm-hmm.
third day, is usually probably the worst. Then, like
Mm-hmm.
around like the fifth, and then going into the
Yep.
next week, you're feeling pretty normal again, and then you got to go back. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's like all these
You're
phases.
absolutely right. That's absolutely how it was. And,
Yes.
and and I'll tell you, in the beginning, I wanted to say in the beginning when it was just this lump that was growing, quite a few people said to me, well, it's probably just some minor thing. The doctor will go in and take it out and you'll be fine. So I had that mindset that I was going to do that. And by the time I got in and saw the doctor, it had grown. I told you it grew so fast. And they were like, we're not going in there with a scalpel. We're not going to touch that. It's near your jugular vein. It's near some of these nerves. And we're not going to touch it. Just so I was a little disappointed because I was hoping that just take it out and then I'll take whatever medicine you want to give me and I'll be fine. And they were like, nope, we can't do that. But during the chemo, I tell you, I feel really blessed that I didn't have nausea. And I said to the doctor, so how much weight am I going to lose? And she said, oh, you're not going to lose any weight. We're putting you on steroids. You'll probably gain weight. And I said, oh, no, 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 no. This is not fair. I mean, my nephew had cancer. God bless him. He's in remission now. He lost a lot of weight. This is not right. So in the end, I did not gain weight.
Okay.
I was purposeful about eating, and I did. Did you? So I had certain things, certain things that I used to like to eat that I couldn't eat, like pizza. It
Oh.
tasted terrible.
Okay. I did have like a change in taste. Yes, it was. I had like all my senses kind of just went like weird. Like I
Yeah,
was all of a sudden like having like heightened smells,
yeah,
and I yeah, it was interesting what how it affects everybody in different ways.
yeah.
And I mean, but you sound like you are, I want to say, like a pretty positive, like resilient type of person, from like learning that you had cancer and not taking it as an answer to not having any symptoms other than just being tired. I don't think I've ever met anybody that did not feel sick, right? Obviously,
No,
I guess you lost some of your hair, but and you were tired, but I don't think I've ever met somebody that was not sick during their cancer. So you sound
interesting.
like you honestly, it sounds like you're pretty healthy. What stage cancer was your diagnosis at?
They said stage 2.
Stage two. Okay.
Yeah, it was funny that I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know that it could have gotten to stage 4 because it probably would have killed me before that because it literally was closing off my jugular, my carotid artery, and squeezing my trachea.
Mhm,
And so that's why they had the dart thing on my ICU
mhm,
door because if I stopped breathing, they were going to have to bring in this special team. But you're right. I from the very beginning, even when before I had seen the doctor about whether it was cancer or not, I had the ultrasound. So I'm in the ultrasound. This is a funny story. I'm laying on the table. My husband is sitting in a chair next to me. The person's doing the ultrasound of my neck, and he stops and he says, I need to go get someone else to help me because I want them to look and see what I'm seeing. And you don't want to hear that. It's like, oh, okay. So he went out of the room and he brought someone else back in and he said, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And she said, oh, yeah, it's right there next to the jugular vein, isn't it? I'm like, oh, isn't that nice? So, um, and again, to your point, what you were saying earlier, it wasn't like we could do anything that moment. We had the ultrasound and we went home.
right.
We had to wait. And we did have a CT scan also at some point. I can't remember. It's all kind of foggy now. But I, throughout it, Dominique, my attitude was okay, give me whatever I need. If I need chemo, give me chemo, because I got other things to do when this is over.
Right.
And then, it was over. Like you, it was a 6-month treatment plan and whatnot. And I was sometimes very, very tired and just, and as far as the food, I found it very funny. There's so many things that, like pizza being one of them, that I really loved. I couldn't eat it anymore, and so I had to change my diet, the way I ate. Maybe that's why I never gained weight. I don't know. And I didn't also. I don't know. Did you? One of the things they told me about the steroids, because they put me on really high doses of steroids, and they said, well, this is going to make you jittery and you probably won't be able to sleep. And I was like, oh, okay. Never had any of that.
Yeah, I've never had any problem sleeping, and this did not, yeah, it did not change for me either. I had no problem sleeping. Similar to you, there were some times where I was so tired, it was tough to get up at sometimes. I so the Now that I've had two bone marrow transplants, when you get a bone marrow transplant, you're quarantined to the hospital for about a month or so, give or
Wow.
take, and they check your blood levels every 4 hours. So every 4 hours they come in, they're accessing your IV or a line in your arm or
You
your
had a
PIC
port. Did you
line.
you said did you say you had a port?
So I had a
I,
port. I had a port, and during my transplant, I also had like a line, and I had basically all these lines. I had a PIC line under my arm. I think I still have a bruise, right, a scar
I
right
did I
here.
did, I did too. Yep.
Yep. And then I had like a line coming out of my other chest. So I had all these access points if they needed to give me fluids or whatever medications they were giving me, things like that. And so they would wake me up every 4 hours. So now I do wake up once a night,
Hmm.
and like consistently. And I still sleep great, but and I could fall asleep anywhere. Like I can fall asleep in public,
Uh,
like in a park. Like I have no problem sleeping. But it has never been a problem until my last transplant for me, that I can't sleep. It's very rare that I sleep through an entire night now.
hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's a little different.
Yeah. I
Maybe
haven't
it's because
slept
I
through
get
the night
older.
in many.
Yeah.
I no, and that part of that is I'm just older, so I have to get up and go to the bathroom a lot.
I
But let me
yeah.
tell you the story about having a pick and getting a port. They, I'm, I don't have good veins, so every time they would put in an IV, it would be okay for a couple of hours, and then it wouldn't, and they'd have to take it out and put a different one in and try the other arm. I had bruises from my wrist to my shoulder from the number of times, and so the one night, and this was over a period of only a couple of days. And finally, they came in and said, they brought a doctor with them, and he said, I'm going to put a pick in. And he explained to me what it was, and I said, that was the only time, Dominique, that I kind of lost it, because I'd been poked and prodded and everything for so many hours, and I was so tired, and I just didn't want anyone to, the way he was describing putting it way into the deep vein in your arm, and I'm like, what does that mean? And I remember I think I cried, and the nurse was holding my hand, and he said, it's 5 minutes. He said, 5 minutes, just give me 5 minutes. So he numbed all the area, and the nurse and I were talking, and we were talking about blog pause. So I had a company before Master Book Builders called Blog Pause, and it was an influencer group of pet bloggers who blogged about their pets. and we talked about block pause. And after a few minutes, I said to her, I think more than 5 minutes have gone by. And the doctor's not done, is he? Because I wasn't watching him. I was looking at her. And she said, well, let's just finish talking about. And so I told her some more stories about block pause. We used to have conferences where people would bring their pets. So they were pet friendly. So we had all these dogs and cats and guinea pigs and ferrets and reptile. I mean, people would just bring whatever pet that they had to our conferences, and they were wonderful. We had a lot of fun. So he finally finished with the pick, and he got it in there, and that was like 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I tried to sleep after that, and probably the next afternoon, it failed.
Oh, my.
And they said, well, we're going to have to put in a port.
Yes.
And I said, what's a port? Well, blah, 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 blah. Okay. It's going to be here. It's going to be in your chest. And I'm like, okay, why didn't you put in the port before you put in the pick? And they said the insurance won't let us. We have to put the pick in first. And if the pick doesn't work, then we're allowed to put in a port, right? Well, the woman who did the port, she was marvelous. It was like if you had a port, it's like a sterile procedure, right?
Mm.
But it literally only took her 5 minutes.
Quick and easy.
Yeah, and she was done. So, and the port was there, and that was wonderful because now they didn't have to poke me anymore. But the port was uncomfortable, so I had the port removed a couple weeks ago, and I was still,
Yeah.
this is where it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was bruised all around here because that's my skin and whatnot. But I didn't. They wanted me to keep it in case,
Yes.
in case the cancer comes back. And I said, well, the cancer's not coming back, so I don't care. I'm taking it out. So they took it out, and we'll see.
Man, you have dealt with so much with your doctors. And you're not the only person that deals with doctors, and it doesn't make any sense. The doctors are supposed to help us. They're supposed to be the professionals, and because right, they went through all this education to have a lot more understanding of our bodies than I do as a normal civilian, right?
Sure.
And they're also not just supposed to be educated and knowledgeable, but I would assume they're supposed to be responsive and take care of things that need to be taken care of. And so that's
Yeah.
very concerning. I'm so happy that you got like second opinions or had a resource that you could
Yeah.
call in order to get in contact with
Yeah.
other doctors. And you're, like I said, you're not the only person that I've heard of that's
Mm-hmm.
gone through situations where the doctor kind of is just acting like nothing is happening or acting like it's not that big of a deal, and
Mm-hmm.
they've already diagnosed you with cancer. It wasn't like, and
Yeah.
initially,
Well,
yeah.
the first doctor the ENT that was supposed to schedule the biopsy, right here in Binghamton, and when I was in his office, as I said, he was very much like, oh no, we have to take care of this. We must do this as quickly as possible. And we went out to his secretary, and he said, we're going to have to set Yvonne up for Miss DeVita up for biopsy. And then we left. That was a Friday afternoon. So I expected to call on Monday telling me when to go for the biopsy. And nothing happened. And so by Monday afternoon, I called his office. And that's when they said, oh, he's home sick. He'll do it tomorrow. He had not written the order. If he'd written the order, the nurse could have taken care of it.
Right.
But he hadn't even done that. So then the next day I called, and they said, he's in surgery today. He'll do it tomorrow. And I was like, does he understand that this is a very fast growing thing and it's cutting off my breathing? And he'll do it tomorrow. So that's when we called. The funny story is my husband Tom the doctor we called us his ex-wife, Jamie. So she and I are friends, and she looked at the ultrasound and she said, "Oh no, we got to get this taken care of." And we actually drove to Rochester and stayed at her house the night before I went and got the first biopsy. But the doctor that I had seen, he calls me on the phone the day I'm like after I had gotten out of the room. The doctor we saw in Rochester actually showed us the ultrasound, told us, said, "Look here, this is your throat, this is this and this." He said, "We're going to take care of this. It's going to be done." Blah, blah. And it was wonderful. The doctor in Binghamton calls me and says, "Miss DeVita, I don't know why you had to go to Rochester. It doesn't matter. And another couple of weeks wasn't going to hurt." And I'm like, yes, it was. I'm sorry, it was. And to my knowledge, we received a letter a couple months ago saying that doctor is no longer practicing in that. So I don't know if he retired or they made him retire or what happened, but he just kept telling me how smart he was, how everybody loved him. I mean, he would go on and on and on about himself. And I'd be meanwhile saying, "What about me? Because I'm the one with the cancer."
You're the one.
So,
Yeah.
but the cancer doctors at Wilmot Cancer Center were wonderful. Everyone, once we got to Rochester, everyone was so attentive, and so the doctor who put in the pick, he was wonderful. He just kept trying to reassure me, but I could tell he was having a hard time because it took a lot longer than it was supposed to. And then the person who came and put the port in was great also. So we had great treatment at Rochester. I think they really, really pay attention. My oncologist is really wonderful. She's her nurses are terrific. I can email them, in my online chart, right? I can ask any questions. They get back to me right away. In Binghamton, when he finally, the doctor here, we finally said to him, "We're going to Rochester. You have to make a referral," because they couldn't accept me in Rochester without a referral. And that was Wednesday, and nothing happened for like several hours. How hard is it to just write a referral, right?
Yes.
So we called his office, got his assistant. "Oh, well, he's going to get to it this afternoon." I'm like, "Well, he better." Thursday morning. No, he still hadn't done it. They called them. "No, we don't have the referral yet. We can't set up anything to." So call his office again. "Well, okay, I'm going to go in there and get him to write it right now." So then she calls me back an hour later. "Okay," she says, "I sent it over." So we call Rochester. They're like, "We didn't get anything." So I called her back. This went on for like those 2 days, and finally the referral went through, and we got in to see the doctor the next day. But that's absurd, right? That's what, like you're saying, that is totally absurd.
That should be like
It
illegal. Like that's like malpractice. Like they're literally like, this is your life, right? And this is
5 minutes it would have taken him to write a referral.
to just get on a piece of paper and
Mhm,
write something
mhm,
down. Takes
mhm.
2 seconds. Very
Yeah,
simple. Yeah, it just I hear all these stories, all the time of
yeah,
doctors pushing people off, saying that the symptoms aren't important, saying that a
yeah,
couple more weeks wouldn't have mattered, right? And meanwhile, you have cancer. Like you've never had cancer before. You don't know, like what about how you feel? You're the patient, right? Like it's
right.
important for you to not just understand that like we have a treatment or a
Mhm,
plan and this is treatable,
mhm.
but also to feel like you're actually being taken care of, right? I think
Right.
is
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
huge deal in this whole world
Yeah,
of healthcare. And so I'm
yeah,
so happy you were able to get to Rochester
yeah.
and be taken
It's
care of.
the interesting thing is that particular doctor, I'll tell you, I had seen him a year before because he's an ENT and I was having trouble swallowing. And I went to him, and he literally spent the entire time in his office talking to my husband. He did not talk to me.
That's
It was like we
interesting.
were living in 1930s where, women didn't have a voice.
That's what I'm saying.
And when I left, I said I never want to see him again. So when they told me I had to see him because there wasn't anybody else to see, I was like, okay, fine. I don't have a choice. I'll go see him. And look what happened.
And I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to bring it up, but it sounds like it has to do with you being a woman. Like, and that's absurd. That like makes no sense. Like you said, we're not in 1980 or whatever. Women
Right.
have human rights just like all of us. And
You would think.
yeah, so that is, it's just completely backwards. And I'm so happy, like I said, you got to Rochester. Thank God
Yeah.
for all the nurses, man. Like I said, I've had to stay in hospitals for months at a time. And if it wasn't for all the nurses taking care
Mm-hmm.
of me, checking my blood,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like I basically had a bell and could ring them to do anything for me because I'm trapped
Right.
in the hospital. And
Right.
they're so responsive. They're helping, they're making sure I have food, making sure I'm comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
warm blankets, like just above
Yeah.
and beyond. These nurses are working like through the entire night. Like some of them are doing graveyard shifts. Like
Yep.
it's crazy what the nurses do. And it's, yeah, I just appreciate it so much. It's so awesome.
But you were saying, my about my attitude and my approach to this whole thing. I'll tell you that I had a rough childhood, pretty rough, um, and it took me many many years to overcome some of the abuse that I had, and it was I was like probably in my 40s before it occurred to me that I wasn't this awful person my mother told me I was. That I was worthwhile in my own self, and I didn't have to listen to her anymore. Um, and so I gradually started to get to the belief that you are what you think you are, and you can do what you think you can do. And so I wrote a book. I wrote a book about marketing to women online back in early 2000s because everyone is ignoring women. Women were spending a lot of money, but no one was marketing to them. So I wrote a book about it. I had a very unpleasant experience with the company I chose to help me because I went to print on demand. It was early days of print on demand, and they did such a poor job that my husband and I had to do it completely over. He learned interior page design, and he did the cover, and I went through it and did the editing, and we said, it's not right that anybody has to go through this. Let's start our own company. So we did. We started our own business, and it wasn't Master Book Builders then, it was called Windsor Media Enterprises. And we worked with authors who wanted to get their books done. And it all came out of the fact that I had such a bad experience. And I said, I don't, why do I need to deal with this? I don't. I can make it better. And if I can make it better for me, then I can make it better for somebody else. And so we did Windsor Media Enterprises for about 7 or 8 years, and then Blog Pause came along. Blog Pause came along because I was speaking at an event and I met the marketing director of Nestle Purina, the dog food company. And at the time, I was blogging quite a bit. I was a very popular blogger back then. I was one of the top 10 women bloggers. And I said to the director, I said, you should blog. Purina should have a blog because more women than men own pets, and women are blogging all over the place. There was something back then called Blog Her that I was part of, and they had conferences every year, and I used to speak at their conferences. So I knew this, and he said the lawyers won't let us blog. We'll get in trouble and we're not allowed to do that. And I said, well, I'll blog for you. And he said, okay, make me a proposal. So I did. He accepted it and I became the Purina blogger.
Wow.
And it took over my life because I found out there were all these other pet bloggers out there I didn't know. And one of them contacted us and said we should do something together. She was in PR, and I was blogging for Purina, and her blog was called Romeo the Cat, and my blog was called Scratchings and Sniffings. And we got together, decided to start something called Blog Pause with my daughter. So it was my husband and myself and my daughter and this other blogger. And she kind of bowed out after the first conference, and it was just Tom and Chloe and I. And we ran Blog Pause for the next 10 years, and it was the most fun. So I had to close the publishing company because I didn't have time to do both. And we were having too much fun with Blog Pause. But during the whole Blog Pause thing, I was in charge of teaching people how to write better. So I was still doing the same thing, right? I would get all the speakers for the conference and whatnot, and basically people would come to the conference, Dominique, and they would recognize the pet before they knew the human. It was like, oh, I have to go and see this pet, this dog or this cat, because that's who I know. That's who I see every time when I go on the blogs. And all the major pet brands would come to our conferences. Our conferences were international. People came from the UK and Australia and New Zealand. Those people didn't necessarily bring their pets, but people from all over would come to our conferences, and they were great. And Blog Pause eventually was acquired by a very big brand that put it in the closet and kind of let it die. So Tom and I said, well, let's go back to do books. And that's when we started Master Book Builders. And now I help other people write, publish, and learn how to market their books. But it's just something that you do. You look and you see there's a need for it, and you fulfill that need. And it's the same. My cancer was something I needed to take care of. That's all. It was like having a cold. Well, what do? If you have a cold, you rest, you take this medicine, and then you're going to feel better. Well, fine. This is what I'm going to do. And when the cancer with the chemo is done, I'm going to be fine. It never occurred to me that I wasn't going to be fine. I had already been through enough in my life. I said, so a couple, like probably 2 months ago now, I got shingles. And I said, after I had shingles, I said, okay, that's enough. I've had cancer and shingles. I'm not having anything else. Thank you. Nothing else. I'm done with anything that can happen. I'm done with that. No more.
Man, yeah, you're awesome. You so you it's interesting. Like you have a great attitude, which is really cool. It's like there's something to people that kind of make up their mind to do things, and it gets done, right? And it's almost like, and I've talked to people before, it's almost like life somewhat prepared you to go through some of these things, right?
Yeah.
So that
Mm-hmm.
by the time you got like cancer or
Mm-hmm.
shingles, you had the ability to say, hey, like you said, it's just a cold. I'm going to get over it and I'm going to be fine. I
Yep.
cannot say that very many people would say that about cancer, and that is, and so like I don't know like what your faith is and what you believe in, right? And it's not like too big of a deal, right? Like we all believe in something, and it's like in my mind, it's like God. Would they say God gives his toughest battles to his strongest warriors? There's sayings like
Mm,
that, right? And it's
right.
like it's like you, in a way, you were prepared to go through something, and you had no question that, oh, I got cancer, I'm going to be done, right? And that was the same for me when I got cancer. I remember my parents were extremely worried. Right, their
Mm-hmm.
son is 19. He has cancer, and I
Yeah.
I told them, I don't know what this is, but we just similar to you. We just have to do whatever we need to do to beat it. Whatever treatment it is that
Yeah.
the doctor knows what he's doing. We're gonna do that, and we're gonna beat it. and it was a lot longer process than I imagined. It was like a 10-year thing, and the
Yeah.
treatments didn't work and transplants and
Yeah.
whatever. But at every moment, it was just like, okay, this is the plan. This is what we're doing. We're gonna beat this. It was never a doubt that I was not gonna, get through these things.
That's
And
good. That's good. I
like
mean,
you
that's,
said, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, like you said, you also were like, oh, I have more things to get done, right? Like
yeah.
you have
Yeah.
something that was,
Hmm.
you have people that you serve. You said three. You have three kids and a husband
Hmm.
that care about you. You also said you had other support. That I know
Yeah.
that plays a major part in keeping people and giving people a reason to get
Yeah.
through thing to get through
Better.
hard things in life, right?
Yeah.
And I know that is always something like in my life, I always have a trip planned. I always have a
Mm.
trip planned, so I always have something that I'm looking forward to, and it always
Ah,
like keeps me excited, right? It's like, oh,
you see.
maybe it's tough and whatever's going on in my life, but in another week I'm going to be on the beach in
Yeah.
California.
See?
Life is great. So like
See?
it's something that kind of just continues to pull you through your life
Yeah.
and keeps you a
Yeah.
little bit like motivated
Well,
or whatever that.
yeah, I'll tell you that I've been a writer my entire life. Even as a child, I was a writer, and I think writing really helped me because I would write stories in high school, and they were reflective of the abuse I was um, enduring at home. And nobody really knew that. They thought I was just making up all these stories because I had all these people, these friends of mine that would say, "Did you write another story? We want to read your stories." So that was empowering because I had people who wanted to read what I was writing, and I was voted most likely to get published in my school. And it took me a while, but I did get published. I wrote for the local paper for a while, but in the end, I think the writing was a very big factor because I didn't so much journal. Journaling is really wonderful, but I wrote stories. I wrote a 300-page book in seventh grade
Wow.
about a ghost, and it was my way of healing myself. And I would actually, so that in the house I lived in, there was this seat halfway up the stairs. There was this window seat with a cushion on it, and I'd go sit up there and I'd read. And there was a big giant, I think it was a maple tree, maybe not a maple tree. Well, it was a big, big old tree. It was out the window, and I would sit there and talk to this tree like it was a person.
Mhm.
And I would imagine, and I literally, I would say to the tree, someday I'm going to write a book like this. I'm going to be a writer like this person. And the tree would say, I believe you. I think you are. I know you're going to do that. And I said, well, I don't know, maybe not. My mother says I'm not smart enough. I'm not going to get. And she says I'll never be any good to anybody. And the tree would say, well, no, I think you can be. So I was projecting, but it was from the reading and the writing that really made me feel. And it was, but again, it was many years until I was out of my mother's house before I even spoke of the abuse that happened. And it wasn't physical, it was psychological. And mind, she would just wear me down, telling me I was worthless and I should never have been born and things like that. And I believed her. How Why wouldn't I? She's my mother, right?
Yes, and you're a kid.
Yeah. And so it took me a while, as I said, till I started to recognize. Wait a minute, maybe that's not true. Maybe all these years she's been telling me that the sky is green, and I'm looking at it and it's blue, and I don't know how do I reconcile that because that's my mother telling me this, so I must be wrong.
Mhm.
But then I'm like, you know what? It is blue. all these years she's been wrong.
Yeah.
So I came out of that, and literally, as you mentioned before, yes, I've had things prepare me. That prepared me as far as I'm going. I got my first husband was like my mother. He mistreated me because that's what you do. You go and you seek out people who are going to make you feel the same way, right? And at some point, I really didn't want to be that way anymore. I didn't want to be that person. And that's when I decided we were going to get a divorce. And he said, well, I'm going to make you so poor you won't be able to afford a loaf of bread. And I said, you cannot do anything to me that is worse than what was done to me in my mother's house. So I am not afraid of you.
Yeah.
And so, I got the divorce, went through some tough times, but throughout it, again, as we've been talking here, throughout the tough times, there was never a moment that it wasn't going to work out. It was like, okay, what do I have to do to make this better? And that's what I'm going to do. And so I do it.
That's such an awesome mindset that you have, and it's it seems like it's led you to a lot of success from your blogs, your multiple
Happiness.
companies,
Happiness.
and at the end of the day, happiness is in all of these stories that you've given. It was all you just simply made a choice that
That's right.
it's gonna be okay. This is just what it is. I need to do
Yep.
whatever we need to do and get it done. And you look at it like that, and you chose to feel good about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
that is such an important thing for people to understand. And like you said, it's empowering to feel like
Yep.
you have control, and it's probably one of the hardest things in the world to take control over yourself. Like you said, it took a
Yep.
long time to understand and
Okay.
realize and get to this point. And I don't know if some people, I don't know if they ever get to that point, right?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so we are so blessed to be able to have like that awareness of ourselves. And
Well, a part of it is my now husband,
awesome.
because he believes that you can do anything anywhere anytime. He just doesn't accept the word no or the word I can't. He has been my biggest supporter. So when we started the publishing company, he was trying actually to start a consultant's practice for himself. He's a recovering lawyer. He wanted to teach other lawyers how to use the internet, because this was back in the early 2000s and lawyers didn't want to be on the internet. And we got together and he said, well, if my business takes off, you'll help me. And if your business takes off, I'll help you. Well, my business is what took off because people wanted to write books and they needed help. And so he's been by my side every step of the way. He's my biggest supporter, my biggest cheerleader. And, every time I get depressed, and every once in a while I do, he'll just be like, we'll make it better. We'll make it better. You know, just what do we need to do? What do you want? You want to go out for ice cream? We'll do that. But whatever it is, so it helps to have someone like that supporting you. It's wonderful.
That's so awesome. And it's like all of these moments led up to your husband now,
Right?
right?
Yeah. Right.
And it's almost like maybe if you didn't go through all of these moments, maybe you wouldn't appreciate your husband as much as you do,
Or
right?
maybe I would have never met him.
Maybe you would have never
I
even gotten
wouldn't
to that
then.
point.
And here's the story. We both attended a networking group. He was trying for his consultancy to learn a little bit more about business. I had no clue how to be in business. So at that time, it wasn't the book business. I was helping people write content on their website. So we're both in this networking group. And on this particular Friday, it was a Q&A. So they had all the smartest people in the networking group. You could raise your hand and ask a question, and they would answer. So um, I remember I stood up, and I don't remember. I asked a question, and his voice in the background, he said, "Well, here's here's what I think. And I turned around, looked at him, and listened to him. And then afterwards, he came up to talk to me and asked me for a cup of coffee. And he'll tell you that that was it for him. He was done. He was all already, he was getting divorced, and I actually made him show me the divorce papers before I would go out with him. But he said, nope, I was smitten, and that was all there was to it. So it's a
That's
great
so
story.
cool. Yeah, that's an awesome story. That's amazing. And yeah, man, that's so cool. I'm so happy for you. That it seems like it seems like now in today's world, like you are in such a happy place, and I can feel the energy, and we're not even in the same room, you know? And I love that for you. It's like I said, I don't know if everybody ever gets to this point,
Yeah.
and that's the goal of why I share stories like yours and why I do a lot of what I do with the podcast in order to inspire people to overcome challenges and show up for themselves, right? And
Yeah.
to make choices
Yeah.
for themselves
Hmm.
of empowerment and to be able to feel happy and feel good
Yeah.
wherever they're at, in whatever
Hmm.
space they're
Hmm.
at in their
Yep.
lives, right? And
Yep.
you are the definition of that in so many ways. And so it was so awesome. um, we're getting a little bit short on time.
Hmm.
This has been an amazing conversation. Again, so thankful for you coming on today.
Thank you.
Can you please explain a little bit more? Say I had a story and I wanted to write a book or something like that. How could somebody get in contact with you to in hopes to try and write a book and try and get published and work with your company, Master Book Builders?
Well, basically, they can contact me. It's an easy email. It's my name. So it's Yvonne at YvonneDeVita.com. So it's a very easy thing. And tell me that they have a book and what their idea is. And then I can get back to them. Generally, what happens is I have a little form that I ask them to fill out to tell me more about their idea and the book. And then we do a Zoom call and we talk about it and we see if there's a fit. I work with authors literally on the writing. It isn't just editing. I help them with the writing because a lot of my clients come to me with really great ideas and they're good writers, but they don't know how to write a book. They know how to write a LinkedIn post or they know how to write something for Facebook. And maybe they have a blog. And I say to them, those are all great things. We can pull them all together and turn them into a book, but there's going to be some extra work that has to be done. So we do the editing, we do the page layout. My husband does that and the cover. We get the book on Amazon. So basically, the idea is we have this package. You want to write a book, I will help you write it. My husband will help produce it so it's beautiful, so it stands on the shelf next to any other kind of book that you can think of. And then we'll teach you how to market it because, Dominique, that's the big part.
Mhm.
Marketing is the hardest part. Authors just want to write. They don't want to market, and I'm like, well, you have to market, but we'll teach you. We'll teach you how to do that.
Right.
So anyone that wants to write a book is happy to contact me at Yvonne at YvonneDeVita.com.
Okay, cool. So yeah, anybody out there that's looking to write a book and share a story, make sure
Mm-hmm.
to get in contact with Miss Yvonne. She'll help you out. She'll help you with the writing and the marketing. It sounds like you and your husband are kind of like a two-piece combo. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Everybody that's watching, go check out the website BeastVsZombie.com. You can get merchandise like this. A percentage of all proceeds goes to cancer research and cancer awareness. So go get you some gear, all types of stuff for all shapes and sizes. And that's all we have today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Miss DeVita, for sharing your story with us today. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
This was fun.
Yeah,
This was great. I enjoyed it.
this was awesome. So everybody have a good rest of your day. Be a beast.